This story is about my younger brother and the issues my wife and I have had since he moved in with us. He is 21 years old and I am 42. I have been married for 12 years and have 2 children, a 7-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. My relationship with my wife has had its ups and downs, but overall it has been healthy. We both work and our kids go to school and daycare. Financially, we are doing okay. My wife has her own car and I have mine. We have been able to take care of our kids to the best of our ability. The issue began when my brother had to move in with us. Our parents are no longer around and he has nowhere else to go. He is about to be released from jail, where he has been serving time for stabbing someone who had been bullying him and others. He doesn't have a job or any money, so he would be homeless if I didn't take him in. He doesn't have any friends or a girlfriend either. While he was in jail, I visited him regularly and provided for his needs. My wife also supported me during this time and was there when I needed her help. My brother's release from jail prompted my wife and I to have a conversation about where he would stay. Our house is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. My wife and I sleep in 1 bedroom, my daughter in another, and my son in the 3rd. My wife asked me where my brother would sleep, as we don't have any extra room in the house. While I love my brother, my wife and I agreed that we wouldn't let him sleep with our son because he had just been released from jail. I could tell that my wife was not happy about my brother moving in with us, but I appreciate that she is doing it for me. We considered using the basement as a place for my brother to sleep, but it is full of stuff and it would be time-consuming to clear out a space for him. Additionally, the basement is not finished and it would be hard for him to sleep there. After a long discussion and some arguing, we decided to set up the garage for him. It is in better shape than the basement and all we would have to do is move our cars out. We made sure the garage was climate controlled and got my brother a bed and a small fridge. The only downside is that he will have to come into the house to use the bathroom. Our kids' rooms are small, so it would be difficult to give one of them up for my brother to sleep in. Both rooms are decorated with their own beds, so it wouldn't work out. When we showed my brother the garage, he seemed unhappy and said, "I get it, you don't want me around your kids inside the house, because I just got out of jail. But don't worry, I'll be here for a short time and then I'll leave. I'm sorry I'm causing you so much trouble." My wife and I tried to reassure him that it wasn't a problem and that we just wanted him to have his own space. He seemed to understand, but I could tell he was still unhappy about it. Despite this, he has been trying to be helpful and make himself useful around the house. Overall, my wife and I are trying to make the best of a difficult situation. We want to help my brother get back on his feet and be there for him, but we also have to consider the needs and well-being of our family. It has been a challenging adjustment, but we are trying to communicate and work together to find a solution that works for everyone. It's not easy, but we are committed to supporting my brother and helping him make positive changes in his life. For the first few days, things were fine. My brother spent most of his time in his room in the garage. I stopped by to talk to him about getting a job. I told him there was an opening at the gas station nearby and that I could talk to the cashier about hiring him. He said he wasn't ready yet and needed time to figure out what kind of job he wanted. A few days later, he still hadn't mentioned it, so I stopped by the gas station and chatted with the cashier. I mentioned that my brother was looking for a job and asked if he would hire him. The cashier said he would be happy to interview my brother and hire him on the spot if he liked him. I explained to the cashier that my brother had just been released from jail and had changed, and I didn't want to hide this from him. The cashier appreciated my honesty and said it wouldn't affect my brother's chances of getting the job. He just wanted to make sure my brother wouldn't get angry at customers and show that he had really changed. I told my brother about the job and he was initially hesitant, but I explained to him that he needed to find a job and get back on his feet. He agreed and went to the gas station to talk to the cashier the next day. The cashier offered him the job, which was a second shift that he would start within a week. From then on, my brother only came back to the house to use the bathroom, which my wife complained about a few times because he made a mess in the bathroom. My brother started his job at the gas station and within a week, the cashier called me to say he caught my brother stealing from him. He wanted to talk to me before going to the police. I went to the gas station and begged the cashier for forgiveness, offering to pay him back and take care of the situation. The cashier agreed and didn't press charges or call the police. I went home with my brother and was very angry with him, but he didn't want to talk about it. I told him he had just ruined a good opportunity to get a job and get out of our house, and he responded by saying things like he didn't like living in the garage. I was shocked because I had done everything I could to help him, even after he stole from the gas station. I didn't tell my wife about the incident because I didn't want to worry her even more. One day, while I was at work, my wife called to say she found my brother going through our son's room. He was going through his toys, books, and anything else he saw. My wife couldn't tell if he had taken anything, but he acted suspicious and shouldn't have been in the room. She asked him to leave immediately and go back to his area in the garage. When I got home, I talked to my brother and he said he was just looking around and wasn't stealing. He said he just liked the room and looking at the toys. I pointed out that he was 21 and my son was 7, so what toys was he interested in? At this point, I was extremely frustrated with my brother and wanted him out of the house completely. I wasn't sure how to do this because he would be homeless. I had a feeling that he was trying to steal something from the room, given that he had already stolen from the gas station. I had an argument with my wife that night about this and she said she was going to put cameras in the house to make sure he wasn't going through our belongings when we weren't home. I didn't want her to do this, but she said she was going to do it anyway. Unfortunately, my wife caught him later going through our things in our bedroom. This meant he was leaving the garage while we weren't home and going through our belongings, just like he had done with my son. My wife and I argued about this. I told him he couldn't come into the house and use our bathroom or anything else. He could use the bathroom at a gas station or fast food place nearby. I told him he could only come into the house to use the bathroom when we were home. I gave him a few $100s that I had saved for my kids and told him to use it to buy food and get back on his feet. I also made a list of businesses in the area that might hire him and gave it to him. 2 days later, I went to the garage to check on him and he was gone. There was a letter from him apologizing for what he had done and saying he was confused and didn't know what to do. He said there was always something in his head telling him to do bad things. I was very sad. I had really tried my best to help him and now I didn't know where he was. I told my wife, who was supportive, and she told me everything would be okay. I wasn't sure what to do. Should I call the police? Should I go out and look for him? That's what I did. I got in my car and drove around the town, but I didn't know anyone who knew him. As I mentioned before, he didn't really have friends. I drove by some homeless shelters, but I couldn't find him. I drove by old buildings, but I still couldn't find him. I decided to wait 24 hours and then call the police to report him as a missing person. I didn't trust him and I wasn't sure if he would do something stupid. Even though I felt like he was sincere in his letter and I could tell he was trying to change, I still felt a big responsibility on my shoulders and wanted to set him up for life before focusing on my family. The next day, I waited all day, but he didn't show up. I spent most of the day waiting for him in the garage, but he never came. I called the police and reported him missing. I told them he had just been released from jail and was going through some mental struggles and asked them to bring him back to my address if they saw him. 2 days later, the police called to say they had arrested him for trying to rob a gas station 7 miles from our house. I couldn't believe it. I felt sick to my stomach. I didn't understand why he was doing this. His bail was set at $4,500 and we didn't have the money to bail him out. When I visited him in jail, he didn't say a word. I kept asking him why, but he just stared at the table and didn't respond. In short, he ended up serving 5 years for his crime. I felt devastated. I felt like I had somehow contributed to this and that I could have done better when he was at home, like making him feel more welcome and keeping him inside. This guilt haunts me every day. I don't visit him as often as I used to because every time I see him, I feel like it's my fault he's there. Part of me also thinks that you can't change everyone and that some people just won't change. I just wish I had some help from family members, but unfortunately we don't have anyone who can help us with this, especially since my parents are no longer around. Do you think this is my fault?